Hi class, teacher Tammy here, and today we're talking about podcasts and content management. And this is Geoff Welch with
Hello.
Geoff Welch Consulting. Tell us what happens with Geoff Welch Consulting.
Yeah, so I offer often one-to-one coaching, but group coaching and workshops as well to help leaders really maximize, unlock the potential in their team, ensure that they are getting the most out of their people and that their teams can be as productive as possible.
Geoff is leading my dream job if I weren't teaching you. So I just love everything he does and is going to be our local Slay national expert on podcasting. So here we go. You've been described, Geoff, as a creative leader, a coach, a speaker, and obviously a musician. How do you define leadership in this digital world?
Yeah, I don't think it's different than it ever was. I think that there are different ways to engage and interact, but I think that leadership first and foremost is an act of service. And I think maybe the thing that we miss a lot when it comes to leadership is we often have an idea that leadership is about, a shared goal and moving people and getting, things done. And I think that is important. That's where we're headed. But I think leadership first and foremost starts with us and our ability to lead ourselves. It's very hard to be a good leader of people if we're not good leaders of ourselves first. And so when I was thinking about leadership in a digital world, the thing that I just kept coming back to was like it all starts with our ability to lead ourselves, our ability to make good choices, our ability to manage our emotions. Which, results vary. Our ability to communicate well, to be clear, and to offer a strong vision. I think all of those things start with our ability to have clarity of thought for ourselves and to put ourselves in the shoes of other people and know, here's how I need to communicate this idea for it to have traction with other people. So hopefully that scratches the itch you're hoping to get there. But I really do think that first and foremost, it's about leading ourselves.
I like what you said about managing yourself and your emotions. And sometimes that's hard to come across in a digital world.
Yeah, well, and I think that is probably something that we mess up a lot is how well we're able to communicate what we're really trying to communicate because we are texting and we are instant messaging and we're doing all of these things. And I have an 18-year-old daughter. And so plenty of conversations that I've seen her having that are emotionally charged that are happening over text message. And I'm like, this is a terrible platform to have this. And so I think, we have to be, one, able to understand our emotions and also understand how those things get filtered. Like in the absence of information, we create a story. Everybody does. And so I don't know how many times I'm working with somebody where they're saying, my boss sent me the craziest message and I've been thinking about it for days. And what we're talking about is how much of that is real and how much of that is just what we interject into it because we're like, I had a weird conversation with my boss last week and then I got this email. And what does that mean? Our ability to recognize, am I communicating clearly through an email or through a text message? Do I need to pick up the phone? Should I go to their office? Like those kind of things. I think those are important things. And that starts with being able to think beyond, I just need to get this out and think about, I need to communicate clearly and what do I need to do that?
All right, excellent. All right, let's move on. Your podcast, Leadership Huddle, often highlights personal and professional growth. What are some of your lessons from guests that we can apply to students managing their own online presence?
I feel like this is going to, I want to say it's going to make me sound old. I am old, so it will reveal that I don't know. Anyway, my answer to that is one, I grew up in a world where what you did when you were 14 disappeared forever. And it didn't come back when you wanted to be a senator someday or when you were applying for this or that or the other. Like everything that you put out there has the potential to exist forever. And I think that is a lot of your students, I'm going to guess, have grown up in a world where that's a reality. But I think a lot of our online social media interactions, they feel very temporary. They feel like something that is momentary, and many of them are. But if you press send, the potential for that thing to exist forever is real. And I think that's just something to always be cognizant of. And just the fact that you never know who is, in the same vein, who might see it. For example, you're having a text exchange with somebody, or even email, right? That's not a social media platform, but it's the same kind of idea. You think this is between you and somebody else, but once you put it in a digital format, they can screen captures, whatever. And so just being cognizant of the fact that these online tools, while they feel very casual in a lot of situations, you just need to be aware with it. Some of these things will resurface, and so it's a wild world. It's a wild world. So I think that's probably the thing that comes to mind first and foremost, is just be aware of what you're sharing and what you're the kind of conversations you're having, because nothing is private anymore. Yeah. Nothing at all.
Great advice. So if you might not have big aspirations to be a CEO now or a senator, but you never know.
Yeah.
All right, Geoff. In class, we're learning about social media for businesses. So for small businesses, how important is it for businesses to tell stories as they're building trust and making connections?
Yeah, I think that's huge, because we live in a world that is increasingly, with the advent of AI, with a lot of tools that make it confusing to understand what is real. Yeah. And the ability, I mean, like the advent now, in fact, by the time this is live, it may just be the way the world is, but accounts that we follow that aren't humans at all, right? Yeah. That are just bots that are producing content and optimizing it to get us to pay attention. I think that the ability to be authentic, the ability to say, the way that I talk about my business, the way that I talk about what matters to us, I think it's important to be able to tell stories that position that as a genuine, authentic human interaction kind of thing, as opposed to just a transactional or something that any machine could create. I think that all things are cyclical, and as we see more and more things that are not real or authentic being produced, our desire to have more of that, I think it will push a lot of things to become more interpersonal. The best way to know that I'm not talking to a robot is to talk to a real person right here. And so I think that we're going to crave those kind of things. And so just being thoughtful about that as we tell stories about the work we do, about the businesses we run, I think that's going to be a huge draw for people, where they're like, I want something real.
I'm going to compliment what you said about being cyclical. Oftentimes in class, the students are telling me emails and postcards are becoming effective because they get so much text and so much social media that retro way of communicating.
Well, and there is something really fun about getting something unexpected in your mailbox now, because for a long time that was just where you got inundated with stuff, but now that's email. Now that is text messaging, and I don't know how many times my phone is vibrating, and it's not someone that that used to be the place where that's only gonna happen if someone I know is reaching out to me, and now it's lots of businesses and lots of other things. So I also think that means that we have to take care about where and how we tell those stories, because we dishonor an authentic message by offering it in an inauthentic way, right? By trying to spam everyone with this deeply personal message. We have to think about that too, about how that reads.
All right, excellent, Geoff. In your experience, and you have great experience, what are the mistakes businesses make when they're trying to build their online presence?
So I'm going to crib off of the work of Donald Miller, who wrote a book called Story Brand, and say that what I see over and over again is we want to position ourselves, our businesses, as the hero, and the client, the prospect, the person, the audience we're trying to reach, they're the hero. If you think about your favorite movies, there's some point where the hero, the person that we care about, the person that we want to win, intersects with somebody else who acts as a guide, who gives them some insight, some training, something that helps them to advance. But at that point, the movie doesn't become about the guide. The guide is a part of the story that's being told about the hero. And I think very often we are constantly thinking about, how do I highlight all the great things about us? Instead of saying, how do I highlight how the things that are great about us will help our audience win? Because no one cares about you. Not really, right? And some people may like your business and they may be big fans of your business, and you may be able to develop a kind of cult following, but that only happens when the person who is sharing that feels like they're a part of something, or that what you're offering has made them be able to do things they couldn't do before. So I think the mistake is we talk about ourselves too much in the context of being the central figure, as opposed to talking about how we help them be the hero and win.
All right, excellent advice. So as you're thinking about your clients and you're giving your clients advice in this class, I think Geoff has brought up an excellent point that I haven't really even thought of before. So it goes beyond basic storytelling. So our next question, Geoff, is what role do you think social media plays in shaping local leadership in a place like Fairbanks?
Yeah, this is a tough one because I'm trying not to be cynical.
This is what your podcast is about.
Leadership. Well, I think that these social platforms, especially in a place like Fairbanks, where we are geographically separated often, and because of environmental things like extreme cold or lots of snow or ice, like there are all these great ways that having tools that allow us to connect, allow us to communicate, are so powerful and so wonderful. And the ability to say, hey, this road that, like, we live in a similar neighborhood, to say, hey, this road is not a good place today, right? Or it's much better than it was yesterday. Like, those are useful things to be able to trade and share on a platform where I don't have to know everyone in my neighborhood for them to have the possibility to get that insight. That's fantastic. I think the challenge is we are often using social in a constant scroll. Like, we pause for half a second, and we don't always have the full context about what we're reading. So what I'm sharing is like a local sort of way that we can all trade information to keep each other safe and happy, right? But sometimes we're sharing information about either, bigger issues or more global issues, and we're not taking the time to validate, is this accurate? Is this useful? Am I providing enough context? Am I inviting conversation? So I think as leaders, what we need to be careful about is we can't assume that the people who see something we post are going to go do their due diligence. That they're going to say, that's an interesting point. I'm going to go research this topic and find out what I need to know about it. They're going to say, oh, wow, that's terrible. And then they're going to move on. And now they've sort of absorbed that as this is accurate, truthful, because so-and-so said it. I think there's no way for us to fully validate everything to the nth degree. But I do think it bears consideration that as leaders, the things that we post, the things that we share, the way that we interact with our community, that sometimes those things are going to have a different weight because people look at us and say, this is someone who should know. Yeah. This is someone who I trust. And I think that's a responsibility. And I think that requires us to say, I don't just see something and read the first paragraph of an article and be like, yeah, and then share it because I don't know what the rest of that article says. And I think that it matters that we as leaders are saying, I offer appropriate context. I invite conversation. This is not just something that's meant to say, see, I told you so, or here's something that I know is going to get people riled up, but an opportunity to say, let's talk about this. What do you think this means? And to be more thoughtful when we're posting things. I hope that is not like too far down the rabbit hole, but that's what I think about when I think about how the way leaders use social media can both be helpful and can also be harmful if we're not careful.
Yeah, I know. I think it's great insight. It's sort of second level about posting about leader and following local opinion leaders, if you will. All right, what advice would you give to our students who are trying to build their personal brand? You gave some advice already. Yeah.
So the thing that I have thought about for years is you're always interviewing for your next opportunity. And I think sometimes when we think about personal brand, what we're thinking about is specifically an online persona. Here is how I want to show up online. And I think in some cases, instead of saying, here's the person I want to be, here's how I want to show up in the world, and also I'm going to share that story online in some way, right? We think of, what is the persona I want to have online, and I'll do some things in my life that support that thing. And so I think we look at it in reverse sometimes, and that as you're embarking upon your career, as you're starting out and building this thing, you are building a personal brand no matter what you do. Because a personal brand, the way I would define it, is what do people think of when they think about you? And I think what you have to be is thoughtful about, what do I want that person who may offer me a job someday, or I want to volunteer over here and I want to have access to these people. What do I want them to see when they look at my body of work? And then also, I'll share those things online as a way to support that. But I think we need to have a strong understanding of what do I want to be known for, and then pursue things that highlight that amplify that, as opposed to just be of the mind that everyone needs to be an influencer. Everyone needs, because influencer means something different now, right? It means that we have a lot of followers. It means that people buy the things that we tell them to buy. It means, those kinds of things. You're an influencer, I'm an influencer, whether we're on social media at all, because of the way that we interact with people, because of how we leverage our skills and how we care about the people around us. And so I think that the personal brand is happening. You just need to think about what you want that to look like, and recognize that every chamber luncheon, every volunteer opportunity, every interaction you have with somebody that you think is random is really building a story. And are you building that story in an intentional way, or is it just a bunch of haphazard stuff where someone says, yeah, I don't really know what I think about when I think about them. We have somebody in Fairbanks who, every time I hear a Pearl Jam song, I think of her. And that is personal branding to some degree, right? Like, there's this connection between this idea and this person. And so I think what we should be focused on is less about how do I get 1 million followers, and more about how do I...
using the right filter.
Yeah, yes, right, yeah. How do I use the right filter? How do I choose something to be known for, and intentionally find ways to amplify that message?
Well, I appreciate where you took this question. I hope the students do too. That personal brand is much more than what you post on social. So give that some thought. Our last question is, if a student is nervous about putting themselves out there on social, or even speaking up in a class, how can they start showing up as a leader in small ways?
This is funny. Like, I actually have somebody that I'm trying to get on the podcast that her whole message, her whole company is built around helping people who are not comfortable being on video put themselves out there in video, right? Because we have very much a bias towards video is very attractive, right? But I actually think about this maybe in a more meta way. I think that sometimes we feel like we need to have a strong original perspective. I need to have 3 ideas that are all mine, that no one else has thought of before, that I can be known for, and I'm going to go speak up about those things. That's really hard to do because I don't know if there are any ideas that haven't been had before. And so I think that the role of curator is a very powerful place to at least start. I would say I'm still a curator, but to say, what are things that I find compelling? What are ideas that I've intersected with that I'm fascinated by or that I would love to talk more about, and share those things? And now it's not about having to be a content creator where I had to come up with it. I had to write it. I had to film it. I had to do whatever. But you say, my platform is all about sharing ideas that I think are compelling. Like a TED Talk, the TED Talk platform is fascinating in that way because like the organization itself doesn't produce any ideas at all. They just invite people with ideas to come share them on their stage. And so I think that that is a fantastic place to start because it gets us off the hook from having to be a great writer or to, have all the tools, the equipment we need to film ourselves or do whatever. And we just say, I'm going to be the person that people think of when they're like, they always have a great idea to share. They always know a book to recommend or a podcast I should listen to. That's a great, great place to start. That, again, gets you off the hook from having to be a creator in terms of originating an idea.
Oh, such great advice. Anything else you want to share with the students, Geoff?
Well, if you're interested in leadership, the podcast Leadership Huddle, it highlights leaders from a lot of Fairbanks leaders from across the country as well, and just conversations about how we can be better leaders, how we can build better teams. So if being a strong leader is of interest to you, you can find that on all the podcast platforms, Leadership Huddle.
Thanks for your time today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Tammy.
Bye, class.